Yo, what's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about Gyoubu Oniwa. He is the boss that you fight. He rides in on a horse, he has a giant spear, and he's super tough. It took me probably 7 or 8 tries to actually beat him. I'm doing everything cold, so I'm not watching or looking up any tutorials. And so it's just very tough to learn by yourself how to defeat these bosses. A lot of them are very, very based on their attacks, range, power, how they're moving. This guy was extremely hard because he has the horse, so he's extremely fast, and because he has the spear with extreme range. And so one of the tactics I used early on was I was actually letting him chase me around, if you actually get behind the horse, he'll actually run away from you a lot and then go into the turn so you can use your grappling hook. And the grappling hook is the real key to winning this battle. I found out later that there's actually an upgrade you can get for your grappling hook, so when you're grappling in, you can attack in the air. But if you don't have that upgrade, you can only grapple to him, get on the ground, and do like 2 or 3 strikes like you see me doing right now. Because when you actually grapple in on him during that phase, it actually kind of staggers him for a second, so you have some time. And then another big thing that I was doing with this is I was just using my block a ton. And I think this is something that, especially early on, that a lot of players don't really think to do, because they think because the enemies have such giant weapons, or because they're so large, or for whatever reason, you don't think you can actually block some of their attacks. And there is definitely some guys who rack up your posture meter really fast, but for the most part, you can usually, especially when you're learning to fight a boss, you can definitely go in and kind of gauge how their attacks are going to be, and kind of watch their combos and see where they're ending and where they're starting and what those kind of things look like. But as I said before, grappling is definitely going to be your best friend in this. You just have to try and evade a lot of his attacks. And so you're just going to have to spend some time in the fight learning what's what. Like that attack where he stabs into the ground gives you a couple seconds. You just have to learn where they're going to end, and then kind of how much time you have. It's never a bad idea, especially early on in a boss fight, to when you think you have a second, just do 1 or 2 strikes, just to see if potentially you would have more time, or what their recover rate is going to be in that phase. Because what happens with a lot of guys is, especially some of the bosses that you have to do 2 death blows on, because some of them you're gonna be able to sneak up on them and then get one right out of the way. But most of the bosses have 2 phases really, and potentially more attacks that come out during their second phase. So like I was saying, the biggest trick to this guy is the grappling hook, and then just doing a couple strikes at a time. I talked about posture in another video, and so what I've kind of been noticing and what I've been learning is the lower, and actually what I read, I think, in one of the loading screens, it's always a really good idea to read the loading screens and the tips they have in the game, because usually those actually work, surprisingly. That attack right there is one of the ones that you can't really stagger or phase him. When he starts whipping the end of the spear around, and if you grapple in, it's not going to phase him at all. I also I unlocked it later, but the firecracker prosthetic attachment will actually, I'm pretty sure potentially is going to have something to do with the horse, or I guess that's kind of an hypothesis or a theory that I can maybe try and test later. But I'm assuming because the firecracker says that it basically can throw animals into a frenzy or something like that. So I think potentially if you use the firecracker on the horse, you can potentially spook him and then get some strikes in that way, potentially. I know there's a bull later that it works with, but yeah, so for this boss, like I said, the biggest thing is going to be your grappling hook. I've probably said it like 4 or 5 times now. The grappling hook, but then just pick and choose, because he's not like super strong, and he really doesn't have a lot of attacks that he's going to use that can go right through your posture or break your guard. You know, like when they get the symbol over their head, and then it's basically telling you like this is an unblockable attack, and you're either gonna jump or evade. But he is a really tough boss, and it definitely did take me a while. You can see I actually finished him with shurikens here. Shurikens are really dope. They work really well, and it's never a bad idea to use them. And don't forget that you actually have him. But he was tough, but he's definitely beatable. So I hope you watch this video and you can see what I did, and then you're kind of listening to what I am saying. And hopefully it helps you out and you can beat this boss. This game is extremely hard, so I had no judgment about looking up guides or tutorials. I think this is probably one of the hardest From Software games out right now, and I'm glad they did it that way. Alright guys, I'll catch you in the next one.